So let's talk Google. Let's talk a little Google. Let's talk a little Google here, pal.
All right, so this has been a very, 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 I'm going to throw one more very in there, hot and heavy news topic.
Live.
Over the past couple weeks. And I just want to bring it up because there's an angle to this that I think maybe some people aren't considering. And so that's where I think we might be able to, add our own flavor to this. So we've all probably heard or seen the headlines. A few weeks back, Google terminated one of their head ethical researchers in their AI division.
Right.
Right. So she was
AI, folks. If you're not paying attention or sleeping, artificial intelligence.
And
we talk about it all the time.
And we've talked about this on the program all the time. And essentially, as I understand it, part of her responsibilities were to make sure that we don't end up in a Terminator Skynet situation, that we're not using AI for the wrong reasons, right? And the thing about the firing that was interesting to me was, and Google executives have commented on it, that what we know from both sides, from her side and from Google, it wasn't a performance review type situation where, she's not pulling her weight, she's not doing her job. They've had sit downs with her before, and they're just not getting in other words, poor work performance.
Right.
It was more actually of her work in the industry,
right,
that got her fired. And so she wrote a paper, and Google required that their employees, when you do stuff like that, if you're going to publish it outside of Google, that Google requires you to let them approve it before you're allowed to release it.
Right.
And they weren't real happy with some of the things that she has to say. And so here's the part that I wanted to draw attention to. Google started this whole endeavor with, their mantra of don't be evil, right? Remember that, Jay?
I do, yeah.
Hey, now I just want to remind you that you have your hands on mission control there, and this is where all the recording is happening, so be careful. I see what you're doing there. Okay. If you crash the show, you'll never be invited back.
Ladies and gentlemen, for those of you not watching this video and you're just listening out there in Radio Land or podcast earbud land, we have a mission control back there, and I'm telling you right now that Sideshot knows how to use the controls of the mission.
He's all over my MacBook Pro. So back to so interestingly enough, someone that's working for the ethical behavior does something against the big machine, if you will, that they don't deem appropriate to their current pathway.
Correct.
And they're not really saying much about what that disagreement particularly was, but it really feels to me, and this is just my opinion, okay, but it kind of feels to me like in our current era, Google could care less about not being evil, about your privacy, about not letting their equipment take over the world. And
right.
Maybe I'm wrong, I hope I'm wrong, but they certainly don't seem to have the sensitivity to that the company announced that they had when they first started.
Yeah, and she had recently been working on a paper, like we said in the beginning of this article, but it was examining the risk of developing computer systems that analyze huge databases of human language and use that to create their own human-like text.
Mm-hmm.
The
machine
paper,
learning, yeah.
Right, exactly. The paper, which was a copy, is shown to the Associated Press, they said, it mentions Google's own new technology used in its search business, as well as those developed by others. Now, this is the stuff that Keith and I have been talking about all the time. This is the unethical practices that I'm sure that she probably brought up was that, you can't do this.
Well, let me give you a real world. Yep, go. What you got?
So it's kind of creepy. I'm not gonna use it.
What? You gonna hold it?
I know my mom is like, she's talking like to her phone or something, or she just says like, "Ooh, I want a new like purse or something."
Yeah.
And then she'll get on like Facebook an hour later, and there's like
an ad. Oh, we talked
three
about
ads.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
We've
That's
talked
exactly
about that.
what we're
Actually
talking
happened.
about. Yeah.
So we
Yep.
had a pretty serious security breach, actually two over the past week. One was FireEye, which is a
Huge.
big government contractor.
Huge, man.
Their job basically is in cybersecurity. And then
Somebody's getting fired.
the U.S. Treasury, SolarWinds, which is if you're not familiar with SolarWinds, it's a platform management product that it's really network management tools, server management, firewall management, that kind of stuff. They got hacked.
Oh, we're not talking Northern Lights. Solar wind. Yeah.
So then the Treasury Department gets breached, and people are thinking, well, they probably had accounts with these guys, and that data probably came out.
Right.
And so the concern here is okay. So here I'll give you a real world example, but I'm going to remove the names of the innocent to protect them. Okay, I'm talking with my peers, and a lot of these guys are super sharp technology IT people, and we're talking about this breach, and we're talking about what happened and why it happened and potential reasons. And one of them goes, "Hey." And we're using a Google chat platform to have this discussion, okay?
Right.
And one of my peers goes, let's take this somewhere else. I'm really not comfortable having this conversation here on a Google product. Now, what does that say to you? People in the know, Jay, people that know technology, people that work in information technology, and one of them says, just talking about security breaches, and they say, yeah, let's not continue this conversation on a Google service. I just don't trust them.
I have had similar conversations with my son, my oldest son. You know him. That I heed his warnings.
Yeah.
He will be talking about certain things, and he'll say, "I wouldn't do that, Dad."
Yeah.
And you and I have had those types of conversations. So I definitely pay attention to my friends that are in the information technology world when it comes to this sort of stuff. We are in a time where there is really not too much sacred anymore, if you will.
Right.
Your privacy, that is.
Right.
And you have to be very careful. And I went through the process of, I just bought a new MacBook Pro, and going through the process of setting this thing up, you really have to pay attention to what you're clicking on, man, because next thing you know, you've signed up for allowing them to see every single word you say, type.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
I have Siri on it, but I don't use it.
Right.
I disabled Siri. I don't want it on there. I don't need it on there.
So, Sideshot just mentioned that, and this will tie into our main headline for the podcast. Google has reportedly rumored to be working on AI cars for years, right? What do you know about? You know any more than that? Any details?
So they've been working on it, I think, just over 10 years. I don't know when they came up with the name. They call it Waymo.
Waymo, yeah. And
it's really cool, and it's worth a lot of a podcast.
Well, and we maybe need to look into that, Jay. So
let's do that.
This is the thing. Like, they were the first one to attach technology to cars, drive around, and map the whole Earth, right? I mean,
right.
There you go. So
that's it.